It was a long stretch of desert highway in southern Arizona, the kind of road that stays empty for hours, the kind of place where you start to forget time. The driver's name was Mark. He had been driving for almost 10 hours. The sun had gone down long ago, and the horizon had turned into a flat, black sheet. There were no lights, no cars behind him, no cars ahead. Just the endless hum of the engine and the white lines sliding under the headlights. He wasn't running from anything. He wasn't going anywhere important either. He just drove because the silence of the road was easier than the silence at home. It was close to midnight when he noticed the fuel gauge drop lower than he expected. The needle was just above empty. He hadn't seen a gas station in more than 100 miles. After another half hour, a small sign appeared on the right side of the road. It said, "Rest stop, 2 miles, diner, gas, open 24 hours." The letters were faded, but the white paint still caught the headlights. He slowed down slightly. He didn't remember seeing the place on the map earlier. Still, he kept driving toward it. 2 miles later, a set of yellow lights appeared ahead. A single gas pump. A small diner beside it, with a neon sign flickering the word "open." The place looked old, but well kept. He pulled up beside the pump. The numbers on the machine were the old rolling kind, not digital. He stepped out, stretched his legs, and started filling the tank. The air was dry and cool. The only sound was the slow clicking of the fuel meter. When he finished, he looked toward the diner. Through the front window, he could see people sitting inside, a waitress moving between tables, a few truckers eating in silence. Everything looked normal. Too normal. He walked to the glass door and pushed it open. A small bell rang. Inside, it smelled like coffee and grease. There was soft music coming from a jukebox in the corner, something old from the 1960s. The waitress turned and smiled. "Evening," she said. Her voice was calm. "Take any seat you like." He sat down at the counter. There were menus, laminated and worn from use. He didn't feel hungry, but he ordered coffee anyway. The waitress nodded and turned toward the coffee pot. Her movements were slow and methodical, like she'd been doing this forever. The other customers barely looked up. A man in a flannel jacket was cutting his steak into perfect, even pieces. A woman stirred her cup again and again, though it was already full. Mark looked around. The walls were lined with old photos, cars, highways, and smiling people. All the pictures were in black and white, and in every one of them, the same diner was behind them. The same booth, the same counter, the same neon sign. His coffee arrived. It was hot, black, and too strong. He took a sip and set it down. The clock above the kitchen door showed 12:14 a.m. It didn't move. He watched it for several minutes. The second hand didn't tick. The waitress noticed him staring. "Clock's been like that for years," she said. Her voice was flat, casual. Mark nodded slowly. He looked out the window. The road outside was empty. The desert stretched on forever. The gas station lights flickered slightly in the distance. The door opened behind him. A man walked in, tall, wearing a leather jacket, face shadowed by a trucker's cap. He nodded at the waitress and sat 2 seats away from Mark. When he spoke, his voice was low and steady. "Long night," he said. Mark turned slightly. "Yeah." The man smiled faintly. "Road can be strange out here. You see things sometimes." Mark didn't answer. The waitress brought the man a cup of coffee without asking. He didn't touch it. For a long time, no one spoke. Only the quiet hum of the jukebox filled the air. Then, without warning, the jukebox stopped. The music cut mid-note. The silence that followed was heavy. The waitress walked over to the machine and tapped it. "It does that," she said. It always does that. Mark looked again at the clock. Still 12:14. He pulled out his phone to check the time. No signal. The screen said 12:14 a.m. He tried restarting it. It stayed the same. He looked up. The man in the leather jacket was staring at him. Then he smiled. "You won't get service out here," the man said. "No one ever does." The words were simple, but something about the way he said them felt wrong. Not threatening, just certain. Mark finished his coffee. He left a few bills on the counter. When he stood up, the waitress spoke without turning around. "Drive safe," she said. He nodded and pushed open the door. Outside, the air was colder. The wind had stopped. He walked back to his car. When he turned the ignition, the headlights came on, but they looked dimmer than before. He pulled out of the lot and back onto the highway.
For 10 minutes, he drove straight. The road looked the same as before. Flat, empty. The sky still had no stars. After 20 minutes, he saw lights ahead again. Yellow lights. The same gas pump. The same diner. The same neon sign flickering open. He slowed down, confused. He looked at the odometer. He had driven more than 20 miles since leaving the diner. He pulled over and checked the road behind him. It was empty. He looked forward again. The rest stop was still there, glowing faintly in the dark. He thought he must have turned somehow, maybe missed an exit. He checked his GPS. No signal. The screen was black. He sat for a moment, then sighed and drove past it. But as he passed, he glanced through the diner window. Inside, he saw the same waitress, the same man in the leather jacket. And at the counter, a figure sitting in the same seat he had taken earlier. It looked like him. He didn't stop. He just kept driving. The highway stretched on. The lights of the rest stop faded in the mirror. He didn't look back again. But after another 20 minutes, the lights appeared ahead once more. Same distance, same glow, same flickering sign. He slowed the car, not out of fear, but out of confusion. He pulled over again, checked the map on the passenger seat. No rest stop listed, no diner, just a blank section of Route 191. He turned off the engine and stepped outside. The night was quiet, too quiet. He could hear his own breathing. Then he heard something else, faint footsteps on gravel. He looked around. Nothing. The sound stopped. He got back in the car and started driving again. After a while, he noticed the dashboard clock, 12:14. He didn't remember when he had last seen it change. He kept driving.
The highway stretched on for what felt like hours. Mark kept driving, but the distance never seemed to change. The desert on either side looked identical. No signs, no trees, no sound. Only the line of asphalt and the low hum of the tires. He checked the clock again. 12:14. Still the same. He thought maybe the clock had broken, but when he looked at his phone, it showed the same thing. 12:14. He put it away and kept driving. After a while, his headlights picked up the outline of another sign ahead. Rest stop, 2 miles, diner, gas, open 24 hours. The same sign. He slowed down, trying to understand. When the diner came into view again, glowing yellow against the black sky, he stopped the car on the shoulder. He sat for a moment staring at it. The same pump, the same flickering neon sign. He could even see the waitress through the window wiping the counter in the same slow motion. He turned the key and killed the engine. Silence filled the car. He opened the door and stepped out. The air was cold, colder than before.
He walked toward the diner. Each step sounded too loud on the gravel. The bell above the door rang when he pushed it open. Everything inside was exactly as he had left it. The waitress looked up. "Evening," she said. "Coffee?" Her words were the same. Her tone was identical. He didn't answer. The man in the leather jacket sat 2 seats down, staring at his untouched coffee. The woman in the booth stirred her cup. The man in flannel cut his steak into even pieces. Mark turned toward the clock above the kitchen door. 12:14. He walked up to it and looked closely. The hands weren't printed, they were real metal, but still, not moving. He reached up and touched the glass. It was cold. Behind him, the waitress spoke. "You shouldn't stay too long." He turned around slowly. "Where am I?" he asked. She looked at him. Her expression didn't change. She said, "On the highway. Everyone ends up here eventually." Mark frowned. "I was just here. I drove away. I came back." The man in the leather jacket smiled faintly. "That's what we all said." He looked at him. "What do you mean?"
The man finally lifted the cup, took a sip, and set it down. He pointed toward the window. "You can drive. You can keep driving. You'll always come back." Mark turned to the door. Outside, the highway stretched on, black, empty, silent. He hesitated for a moment, then walked out. The wind had stopped completely. Not a sound. He got into his car and started the engine. The headlights came on. He drove forward, faster this time. The odometer ticked. 10 miles, 20, 30. Nothing changed. Then, up ahead, the same yellow lights appeared again. The diner, the pump, the sign. He passed it without slowing. The lights faded behind him. He drove another 30 miles. Then, he saw them again. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. He didn't stop. He didn't look. He just kept driving. But the highway never changed. Every few miles, the same curve, the same patch of desert, the same cracked mile marker. After a while, he noticed something in the distance. Headlights coming toward him for the first time all night. He slowed. The lights grew brighter, closer. But as they passed, he saw it was the same model car as his own. Same color, same plates. Through the window, he saw the driver. It was him, expressionless, hands on the wheel, eyes forward. The car passed silently. The taillights disappeared behind him. He stopped the car on the side of the road. He didn't get out. He just sat there. After a while, he noticed the gas cage. Full. He hadn't filled it. He hadn't stopped. The dashboard clock read 12:14. He turned off the engine. The lights went dark. He sat in the silence. Then, faintly, from somewhere behind him, came the sound of that diner bell. Soft, distant, ringing once. He looked in the rearview mirror. Nothing. He turned the key again. The car started. The radio flicked on for a second, static buzzing through. A voice came through. Quiet, slow, monotone. It said, "Coffee's ready." He switched it off immediately. He looked ahead. There were lights on the horizon again, the same glow, yellow and flickering. He drove toward them. He didn't know why. Maybe because there was nowhere else to go. When he reached the rest stop again, he parked and went inside. The waitress smiled at him. "Evening," she said. "Coffee?" He nodded. "Yeah." She poured him a cup. Steam rose from the surface. The clock behind her showed 12:14. He sat down at the counter.
The man in the leather jacket was gone. The woman in the booth was gone. Only the waitress remained. He looked at the wall of photos again. For the first time, he noticed something. In the newest photo, right near the counter, someone sat in the seat he was in. Same jacket, same face. He didn't say anything. He just looked at it for a long time. The waitress refilled his cup. He didn't touch it. Outside, the desert stayed dark. The road stretched away into nowhere. At 12:14, the clock didn't tick. The air stayed still. And in the faint reflection of the diner's window, a new figure stood behind the counter, pouring coffee for the next traveler who would stop someday when the sign said, "Open 24 hours." The highway cut through the mountains, quiet, empty, and cold after midnight. It was winter. Frost clung to the glass, and the air inside the van fogged the windshield with every breath. No traffic, no headlights, just a long two-lane stretch twisting between dark cliffs. The driver's name was Aaron. He worked nights, running deliveries between two towns, from Redwood to Silver Creek. He'd made the trip hundreds of times. Same route, same turn before the toll gate. That night felt no different, until he saw something new. A sign stood near the curve, clean, white, freshly painted. Last exit before tunnel, refreshments ahead. He didn't remember ever seeing it before, but he was tired. Coffee sounded good. About a mile later, he spotted a small roadside stand lit by a single yellow bulb. A man stood behind the counter. Steam rose from a dented kettle. There was a bench, 2 chairs, nothing else. Aaron pulled over. The man smiled faintly. "Long night?" he asked. Aaron nodded. "Yeah, just need some coffee." The man poured it slowly. The air smelled faintly metallic, like rust. Aaron took a sip. It was hot and strong, and somehow cleared his head right away. He looked around. The stand was perched on a narrow shoulder of the road. Beyond it, a steep drop, nothing but blackness below. Not many folks stop here anymore. Not after the accident. Aaron frowned. What accident? The man pointed down the road. Right before the tunnel. A bus went over the edge last year. Whole family. Nobody made it. He said it so flatly, like he'd told the story 1,000 times. Aaron didn't answer. He just stared toward the bend, where in the weak light he could barely make out the shimmer of twisted metal far below. When he turned back, the man was gone. The counter was empty, the kettle was cold, the light was out. There was no stand at all, just gravel and broken stones. Aaron stepped back, his heart pounding hard but slow. The wind picked up again, moaning through the cliffs. He looked down at his cup. It was dry, bone dry. He climbed into his van and drove on. The tunnel appeared 5 minutes later. At the entrance, flowers were tied to the guardrail, fresh ones. Next to them stood a small wooden sign. In memory of those lost, on January 12th, Bus 54. And below it, faint letters scratched in paint. Do not stop before the tunnel. There's no stand there anymore. Aaron never stopped again on that road, but every time he passed that turn, he checked his mirrors. And once, only once, he swore he saw the same man standing by the cliff, pouring coffee into a cup that never filled.